professionals by conducting these webinars. Our goal is to bring together the best teachers to speak on wide range of topics to foster learning. So this is our main motto of organizing webinars with a wide variety of professionals spoke on this in our ISCP webinar. This is the 7th webinar. Then we have conducted a survey. Our speakers have conducted survey with almost 300 professionals, physiotherapists. From that, they have picked up this subject, the telehealth in pediatric therapy, challenges in New Horizon. Actually, telehealth is not a new concept, and since old, from the past many years, we are practicing, but this pandemic has brought the throw light on the telehealth. There are many people in India that don't have access to the proper health care. This telehealth is a great way to close this gap and provide healthcare to communities that desperately need it. And this telehealth also reduces the need for travel. For example, it gives you the flexibility to still do your physio session, whether you have a child at home or caught up with the work at the office. It reduces the need to travel, saving your time and money. And it decreases the exposure to infectious diseases also. And moreover, this is a very cost-effective treatment. Telehealth sessions are cheaper than normal physiotherapy sessions, making it more affordable to see physio. It empowers the patient and it is also safe. Many patients worry that it won't be safe to treat themselves. But please remember, your physiotherapist will guide you during the process and choose techniques that will be safe and effective for your individual situations. Today we have a very young, talented, reputed speakers, Dr. Asha Chetnis, Dr. Madhavi, Lakshit Doshi from Ahmedabad, Sanket Kadilkar, and our Trupti Nikarge. They will be presenting with a lot of research they did before presenting this telehealth topic. And we are very happy to, I'm very happy to share with you that from all over the country, from all parts of every state, all professionals, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, parents, all of them have registered to attend this webinar. From abroad also, many of the professionals registered for this webinar. This time we are going to issue e-certificate under one condition. Those who fill up the feedback form and submit, they will be receiving e-certificate. And I thank you all of you for joining this webinar. And I request Dr. Meenakshi Girish to introduce our moderator, Dr. Rupali Sen Biswas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mallikarjun. It is my pleasure to kickstart this unique webinar by introducing the moderator for the session, Dr. Rupali Sen Biswas. She is so well qualified to moderate the session, which will be full of speakers of repute. Dr. Rupali Sen is Assistant Professor of Occupational Therapy. She is Head of Department of Occupational Therapy at National Institute of Locomotor Disabilities, Kolkata. Dr. Rupali Sen, on behalf of IACP, I welcome you.
Thank you, madam. Good afternoon, everybody. I am also very grateful and thankful for giving me a great chance to this as a moderator. And also I'm welcoming all participants and all your speakers. It really is a challenge. Thank you very much.
We request Dr. Asha Chetnis to start this proceeding of the webinar. Yeah, I'm just starting. One second, I need to just get our presentation ready. Good evening, everybody. We are really going to try and talk about, this is an attempt actually, on telehealth in pediatric therapy, challenges in the horizon. We're a group of couple of pediatric therapists, OTs and PTs who would kind of talk about a couple of things. At the outset, I really need to thank our President, Secretary, Sir, the Board of Directors, the Executive Body, all our colleagues who've given us a lot of input, our mentors, our parents, and the webinar team that's put all this together. I think so the objectives that we are trying to get going is understand basically the telehealth basic practice methods, its advantages, its limitations, understand how technology helps. We have tried to do a little survey about what is the Western world research and what we in India are. And we are really not really talking about case studies, but we are really talking about case scenarios and how we really move ahead. On the outset, I think so I should say, wow, things have really changed. There is exponential telehealth growth that is occurring across the continuum of healthcare. And I think so this growth that can be attributed to improvements in technology and internet connectivity, a business environment that supports innovation, and an increasing emphasis on convenient and value-based healthcare. Despite all these challenges, health has already become more common than pediatric therapists may realize. The growth and evolution of telehealth are opening new avenues, as we were discussing, which are more efficient, effective, and affordable across the world. However, there remain several barriers to the integration of telehealth into our current practices, establishing the necessary technical, administrative, and operational infrastructures sometimes can be very, very challenging. There is relatively lack of rigorous research data to demonstrate that telehealth is indeed delivering on its promises. At this, on the outset, I invite Trupti to take over.
Thank you, Asha. Good evening, all. With the ongoing novel coronavirus pandemic, telehealth becomes an alternative method for service delivery the therapist can use. But providing this therapy comes with its unique set of challenges, and so the today's topic. Asha, next slide, please. I think I can't move.
Okay, go ahead.
Next slide, please. So I'll be covering the difference between telehealth, telemedicine, and telerehabilitation and how it functions, and weigh the capabilities and limitations of telehealth. We are almost using telehealth and telemedicine interchangeably, but telehealth is different from telemedicine because it refers to a broader scope of clinical and non-clinical services. It delivers and facilitates health and health-related services, including medical care, provider and patient education, health information services, and self-care via telecommunication and digital communication technologies. Whereas telemedicine is a delivery of healthcare services where distance is a critical factor by all healthcare professionals using information and communication technologies for the exchange of valid information for diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of disease and injuries, research and evaluation with the aim of advancing the health of individuals and communities. Next slide, Asha. In 2005, American Association of Occupational Therapists published a position paper on telerehabilitation, stating that the telerehabilitation is the clinical application of consultative, preventive, diagnostic, and therapeutic services via two-way interactive communication technology. Next. Next. Telehealth is usually conducted in, Asha, next, first one. Telehealth is usually in two types. Asynchronous and synchronous. Asynchronous is a one-way interaction which is regularly used by us since ages, wherein we just send our reports and images through messages and emails to our seniors and professionals, expert professionals for their opinion. But in this time of pandemic, is the synchronous type of telehealth has rapidly been evolving. Here, there is real-time video conferencing, two-way interaction happening between the client and the professional. Next. But before we actually venture into telehealth, we need to understand the guidelines to be followed. But in India, we don't have any guidelines, but these are few guidelines from the Western countries, wherein we have to consider the client's comfort and competence in using the technology, and they have to understand the system's capabilities and limitations. And we as a therapist have to take care of the to understand the competence of the client using the technology. Even the provider has to have a technical support available with them in case of any emergencies. We need to have a consent to treat. So first we have to explain to the client the difference between the telehealth and the in-hand therapy sessions. And we have to take a consent from them to treat, also to record the sessions and protect their information given by them. We have to have the compliance to the privacy and confidentiality of the patient's health information. Our quality care and should be maintaining and adhering to the standards of practice which we are using in an in-hand practice. Also, we have to take care of the patient's records, and all the sessions and during the telehealth should be well documented. Next. Asha, next. So for a telerehabilitation, we need to set up a platform. First one, Asha. Asha, the earlier one. Yeah.
This is okay. Now this is the platform.
For telerehabilitation, what actually we need is a computer or a laptop with a good mic and camera system. But another option can be a tablet or a smartphone. But we have to compromise on the screen size when we are using a smartphone. You need a good high internet speed connection and a good secure platform, which will be discussed in detail by my next speaker. A therapist should always have a doll at his hand, preferably, so that for a proper demonstration of activities while treating the child. Next, for a client, you have to give them some instruction. Next slide. For the client, you have to give them the instruction. The computer or the smart device has to be positioned in such a way that the therapist can view the client properly. Also explain the parent the benefit of them being on a computer or laptop, and also if they can host the meeting so that they can record the sessions which can be used by them for the future references. Also, we have to give them a list of equipments. We have to take the list of equipments present at their place, mail to us prior to planning the session, and also ask them, we have to mail them the list so that they save on the time running around searching for the equipments during the session time. Next. What are the benefits of this telerehabilitation? In this difficult time, it will help the client to stay healthy by better access to the therapy within the comfort of their house, reducing the risk of their exposure. Also, it will be possible for them to take their appointments during their convenient times, and so there will be an increased compliance to the therapy. Also, as Sir already mentioned, it is a cost-effective thing as the travel expense is reduced. Also, you find different reduced absenteeism from the patients. In normal situations, telerehabilitation, as Sir was also saying, it will give us an improved access to more clients, and also we can easily reach to rural remote areas and give them therapy. Next. Barriers. What are the barriers? There is always a lack of human touch. To develop any therapeutic relationship, you need to build up trust. But with remote services, there is always a challenge. There is no human touch there, or there is no communication between the therapist, which is happening in an in-hand therapy sessions. So that always is a difference. Then there is a challenge in diagnosing, wherein you need a hands-on assessment in motor assessment or a tonal assessment. So there is always a challenge in diagnosing these cases. In patients with having safety issues, like patients with balance problems, patients with involuntary movements, there's always a safety risk which has to be taken into consideration. Next. Next.
Lacunae.
Also, yeah, lacunae are faced. There is always this the problem which we can face during therapy. As we are having a pediatric session, the child may run away or be out of the room. They may disregard you on the computer. Sometimes, especially with the sensory integration kids, they may get frightened seeing you on the computers, or they may not look you at the computer. So we have to have some engagement techniques ready. So what can be? How can you engage the child? Next slide, Asha. Always you have to have a positive reinforcement. The session should be very motivating, fun filled, and the voice modulation of the therapist is very important. At times we may have to use some behavior modification techniques. If possible, you can ask the siblings of the child to participate in the session. That will also help the child to get very well engaged. Next. So in all, Asha, next, to summarize, I will say tele-rehab and online technology will continue to evolve, but we as a therapist must adapt to these clinical skills to meet these advancements. And it is our responsibility as a therapist to adapt to these changes and provide care to our clients in this time of global pandemic, and also alleviate the risk of their overall health and well-being. Thank you. And my next speaker, Lakshit, will be talking on the role of technology.
Very good evening to everyone. I'll be talking on the role of technology in pediatric telehealth services. The objectives would be to have the overview of the use of technology in healthcare, use of the different available platforms for pediatric telehealth services, and the benefits and problems of this technology. Next slide, please, Asha. So today is the era of information and technology, and we have accepted and incorporated technology in almost every walks of our life. There are almost all the fields that are using technology for their progress and for their betterment. So equally, the medical and healthcare facilities are also adopting newer and newer technologies for better understanding, training, research, and service delivery. Particularly the current time of the COVID pandemic requires leverage of the healthcare services so that we are able to provide appropriate good quality care to the maximum number of clients possible, particularly those clients who are not able to step out of their home and go to the hospitals or visit their doctor or therapist. So it looks like that the use of technology for healthcare service has become the need of the hour. Next slide, please, Asha. So any technology that is used to store, share, or analyze health information can be referred to as health information technologies. And there are a lot of varieties of technologies available that's used in the healthcare. It may just be a little app on our smartphone, or various softwares like recording and monitoring softwares, or video conferencing softwares, and many, many, many more. Next slide, please, Asha. We do see technology being used for the healthcare in our day-to-day routines, ranging from the simple ones like the fitness bands and the smartwatches that track our physical activity, the steps taken, the calories burned, or the sedentary time spent, or the monitoring devices that are used for patients with specific diseases, for example, to monitor heart rate and oxygen saturation level. We also see complex technologies being used in the healthcare, like the ones used in imaging and radiology techniques, the ones used in robotic surgeries, the ones used in the devices that work on artificial intelligence. Next slide, please, Asha. So when we talk about children with cerebral palsy or developmental disabilities, these children require a continuing ongoing care. And in the current time of the COVID pandemic, they are inbound, they are into the home. They can't step out, because if they step out, there's a risk of exposure to the infection. They don't have enough public transport available. There are other factors like lack of finance or lack of personal vehicles. And because of all these things, they are not able to go out and complete that need for continuing ongoing care. So if we think of telehealth in this time, it allows a kind of remote video visit where we as clinicians can connect with the client. And in such video visits, we can note down our clinical findings that we can do on observation of the client. We can get the updated medical records from the client. If the client is in new consultation, we can make a diagnosis based on the medical records and our observational findings. And based on all of this, we can provide some basic therapy tips and provide a good home program. We are going to see this, some of this in the case scenarios that will be presented in the next, in a while. Next slide, please, Asha. So there are a lot of different platforms available for this. but certain platforms shall not be used because certain platforms use videos to be posted publicly so that anyone can see this, see those videos like YouTube or Facebook or any other such platforms. Those shall not be used. There are other platforms that are used very commonly, but there are little low tech ones. We'll be discussing that in the next slide. And the below, the ones that are mentioned below, they are a little high tech ones, which allow a lot of different options like scheduling appointment with a specific client or with a specific doctor or therapist, and that have payment options also. And these are being used in bigger hospitals, etc. Asha, next slide, please. So I have just mentioned a few platforms that are commonly used. Some may prefer one platform over the other platform, and these are just a small number of them. There are n number of platforms available currently on the internet. Next slide, please, Asha. So all of this, most of these platforms allow free video meetings. Some of them also have paid versions, which allow some extra features like having more time for the video session or more people joining in the meeting, like a physio and an occupational therapist want to have a combined session with the client, or a neurologist and a therapist want to have a combined consultation. So more people joining in the meeting, recording of the video sessions for future reference and follow-up. There are some of them which are a low tech platforms like WhatsApp video calling, which just allow face-to-face video meetings, nothing else. But there are some of them which are a little high tech and they allow more features like, you can share the screen and you can, share the whiteboard, etc. So these remote video visits, they allow real-time audio video communication and recording of the session. We can, use that for follow-up. We can compare weekly videos and keep track of our goals. We can take a snapshot from between the video sessions and send it back to the clients for correction of the position and the alignment and their hand placements. We can also have shared files where we can put our input, like what goal we'll be working on, or how shall we work, or what would be your strategy, and then parents can fill up that how did they perceive the session, what could they achieve from that, what could they not do that. So this becomes a little easier for documentation. Next slide, please, Asha. So the resources needed has already been talked by Dr. Trupti. Next slide, please, Asha. So the advantages of using this technology for such telehealth sessions is nowadays the technologies are very much user friendly. So any new person can easily learn and start working on this technology within no time. So these technologies have now become very quick, easy and convenient, and it is very much accessible. Anyone can access that from a smartphone or from a laptop. You don't have to go and step out of your home. And because you don't have to go to the department or to the hospital, it reduces the transportation time and the costs also. Next slide, please, Asha. So any technology comes with its own drawbacks also. So one of the important drawback is, previous slide, Asha. Thank you. So one of the important drawback is increased screen time. In today's time, anyways, because of the lockdown, the children are at home and having more screen time. Also, many of them are attending online schooling, and so to add to that, the telehealth will increase the screen time, and we all know the adverse effects of the screen time. So that is one thing that needs to be, we have to consider it. In India, there are still some socioeconomic groups which doesn't have availability of these technical devices like smartphones or computer or laptop. Or if they have such devices, the connectivity may be an issue in remote areas. One more important thing is any technology that deals with patients' health information, because we are, conveying patient records, health records, and their photos and their videos. This has to have a very good level of security, because if it gets posted on a public platform, it can be a problem. Next slide, please, Asha. So to summarize, I would say that technology has its own advantages and disadvantages, and we need to be very sure of the safety and security of the patients and their health information, and accordingly decide for each individual client what would be the best suitable option for each client at a particular moment. So thank you very much. And I hand over the session to the next speaker, Dr. Madhvi Kelapure.
Madhvi, we can't hear your voice.
so sorry. Am I audible now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Madhu.
Good evening, everybody. In my next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about the guidelines that are available for pediatric therapy. What is the literature available in Western and Indian scenario? And I will be going to take you through a small survey that we did. Asha, I'm just checking if I can advance the slides.
Go ahead.
As Trupti has already mentioned us about the guidelines that are available. So Western world, there are guidelines are already in place. So you have the Association of American Occupational Therapists, Physiotherapists, the Australian Associations, and the British Columbia, that is Canadian Associations. All of them have their guidelines for tele-rehab very much in place. Next slide. For our country, the Medical Council of India did publish telemedicine practice guidelines in March 2020. However, the fact remains that we do not have specific guidelines for pediatric occupational therapists or physiotherapists for giving services through telerehab. Next slide. Why do we really want to look at research? Because we have questions. Questions like, is telerehab really effective? How effective is it? What are the best practice guidelines? Or what are the requisites required for best outcomes? What are the lacunae and what are the future directions? Next slide, Ashna. So as with any intervention, there is a lot of evidence always available for the efficacy or the effect of this telerehab intervention as well. However, the fact remains that most of the papers up to till today are pre-COVID times. So that time, the need for which this telerehab was different were very, very different than what it is for today. I would like to quote two simple papers. They are systematic reviews of 2018 and 2019, which mention that telerehabilitation is an alternative mode of service delivery. There are potential benefits with regarding to healthcare access, the time and cost savings, and also when compared, it is as effective as face-to-face therapy. Next slide. Asha, next slide, please. Yeah. There are definitely some papers who focus only on the pediatric population. And one such study definitely says that there is a strong evidence for the use of telehealth in pediatric occupational therapy as regard to satisfaction. Next slide, please. For prerequisites, we also have certain papers. Asha, next slide. Asha, next slide, please.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So this is a systematic review done on pediatric population. Paper is of 2018. And for a tele-intervention to become really effective, they have listed out certain essentials, which are, you need to really target the parents, you have to teach them. The approach has to center around an active exercise program. It needs to focus on improving the child's functional behavior, and it has to be given for a duration of more than 8 weeks with a frequency of at least once a week. Next slide. What are the lacunae or limitations? There are a few papers which really list down these lacunae, and if you want to list them, and after me going through a lot of papers, I would say that the first and foremost lacunae that I find is the poor evidence on practice methods. We really don't know what type of practice methods are good. Everybody is following their own way of giving telerehab, but which method is really effective, we do not know. Other than this, there are a lot of other lacunae, like limited number of studies. Whatever studies have been done are done in small isolated places, confined to one hospital, one particular research center or an institute. There are a lack of longitudinal studies. They do not really address current and future challenges. And also there is a lack of high quality evidence regarding the impact on resource allocations and costs. Next slide, please. For future directions, there are really very few number of papers. I would like to quote this recent paper which is published in June 2020, and it talks about telemedicine for cerebral palsy during the COVID-19 pandemic. If I have to summarize this paper, comes out with some very good pointers. It says that telemedicine services have scaled up during this global crisis. Multidisciplinary therapeutic presence is definitely more accessible for any child in his or her natural environment. It gives rise to enhanced monitoring, definitely to prevent complications and comorbidities. There is nowadays acceptance of video conferences, which is replacing in-person communication. Transformation of services is happening, especially in the healthcare, and rehab scene is definitely not spared with it. So the network patients and families become your responsible drivers for their health, along with therapists whose responsibilities have definitely increased multifold. Next slide. Coming to Indian literature, obviously there are few papers which talk about the feasibility, the effectiveness, the utility, but as in Western literature, we also have limitations and lacunae here. The papers are all also from the pre-COVID times. So we definitely have few questions which still remain unanswered. That's the reason the team thought of doing a small survey. We thought of, next slide, just to know the pulse of what is happening, what is the pulse between the parents, amongst the therapists. We thought of doing the survey with the objective of mind in knowing the perceptions and practice of teletherapy for children with special needs. So we had 4 surveys with 4 different categories, and we asked questions to parents with and without telehealth experience and therapists with and without telehealth experience. So there were about 12 to 14 questions in each survey. Due to time constraint, I may not be able to tell you all each and every question and the response. What I'll be doing is I'll be giving you a gist of what questions were asked and what were the responses like. So for parents with no telehealth experience, we asked questions like what was the frequency of therapy prior to lockdown? Did they see any change in their children's physical abilities or any other problem due to lack of therapy? Were they doing any kind of home therapy? Are they willing to restart therapy at clinics? Is there interest in pursuing online therapy? And the kind of response that we got was, prior to lockdown, more than 50% of the children were receiving therapy 5 days a week. Maximum number of parents felt that their children's physical abilities were the same, and they did not really see any problems due to lack of face-to-face therapy. And over 60% of respondents were doing home-based therapy. Next slide. So a few highlights of this survey. 65% of the respondents were against taking their children for face-to-face therapy. For willingness to pursue online therapy for children, the response was ambiguous. So equal proportions of them said yes, and equal proportion were for not very sure about it. Next slide. Most of the respondents gave a nod for once a week face-to-face therapy with online therapy at a suitable frequency. Next slide. When asked about the reason of being against face-to-face therapy, most of them selected the option of the risk of exposure to COVID. And we can see that the fear factor is very huge over here. Next slide. For parents with telehealth experience, we asked questions like, since when they were receiving teletherapy, what were their perceptions, what did they think about the benefits and drawbacks, what was their comfort level like, will they use it in future, and was there any willingness to resume clinic-based therapy? The responses were, maximum of the respondents were receiving online therapy since 3 months. When asked about their perceptions of telehealth, maximum were willing to continue, and few said that there are minor challenges, but none of them were against it. There were almost equal number of responses for being comfortable and not comfortable with carrying out therapy. Next slide. So there is a clear-cut majority that you can see for the future use as well as for recommending it to other families. Next slide. Almost 80% of the respondents were against taking their children to face-to-face therapy. Majority of them voted for a schedule of once a week face-to-face therapy combined with online therapy. Next slide. For therapists who had no telehealth experience, we had major responses in this category. The questions asked were, what was their opinion on teletherapy? Do they have any reservations or concerns? What are the reasons were they not able to do teletherapy successfully? Are they willing to really pursue it? Do they feel they need training? And what were the probable reasons? For responses, among many concerns, most of them were the fact that telehealth cannot replace hands-on therapy and possible errors can be there by parents. Almost all of them were willing to provide online therapy sessions. More than half of them felt it will be beneficial to have training in telehealth. And the reasons for not being able to do teletherapy were many multifold. Like some felt that the parents were not able to execute it well, some felt that the patients were not cooperative, some felt there were technological glitches, and so forth and so on. Next slide, please. A very few of the therapists were really not aware about telehealth, so we can say that there is a good amount of awareness about it. All therapists had tried different ways to make up for the lack of therapy during lockdown, and these were all asynchronous method of teletherapy. Next. 52% said that telehealth is the need of the hour, whereas 23% said that there are major challenges. 70% reported of having their own reservations about online therapy. Next. Coming to therapists with telehealth experience, questions asked to them were what was the frequency that they provided services at? Were they satisfied? What were their perceptions? What platforms did they use and what did they think was the best platform? What were the benefits and drawbacks and what was the best method? Now, maximum of them responded in a way that they were positive about it. They were doing telehealth once a week. Majority of them felt that there is only one choice that they have during the pandemic to provide services, whereas equal proportion felt that there were few challenges. Amongst the benefits, providing services and empowering parents were quoted by most of them. Drawbacks were mostly technical, sometimes no replacement of hands-on therapy, and difficulty in judging parents' handling. Majority were of the opinion that WhatsApp video call was the best technological platform. Now, this last point is a little debatable. It appears that therapists are looking at convenience of their own and of their patients and the families. But I feel if you have a vision in mind, there are drawbacks for this. As Lakshit rightly pointed out, it's like a very primitive way of doing telerehab. Next slide. So majority of them voted for a method where parent will perform therapy on the basis of pre-sent videos and therapist correcting them during the session. The interpretation of response for willingness to continue was not very clear. So as you can see, there is equal proportion of responses for yes and maybe. Next slide, Asha. The survey remains open. We want to reach to maximum number of therapists and parents, and so that we can come to more conclusions, more deeper conclusions. But to summarize, I would like to say that there is a strong need for guidelines for telehealth practice in pediatrics in the Indian scenario. Parents who are doing or who are not doing teletherapy are definitely not willing to resume outpatient-based therapy. Parents who are pursuing telehealth are willing to continue it in future. Therapists, a large section of them, I must say, do have reservations about providing online therapy. And therapists who are providing online therapy are satisfied, but there is a lot of ambiguity for the future use of telehealth. I would conclude by saying that change is inevitable. Therapists need to embrace this change and they really need to act responsibly. Thanks a lot. I request Asha now to come forward for the case scenario presentation.
Thank you, Lakshit. Thank you, Madhvi, and thank you, Trupti, for laying the foundation down. Now, what I'm really going to start talking about, and we're really trying, guys, really looking at a case scenario. So I'm going to present 2 case scenarios, and Sanket is going to present 1 case scenario. So my first case scenario is a child who I've never met. It's a new online consult. The parents asked me. She's a GMFCS 5, a MAC 5, a CFCS 5, and an EDAC 5. If I give you a very brief history, she was born at 36 weeks, had vacuum delivery, she had seizures at 56th day of life, underwent a neurosurgical procedure, they separated her 2 hemispheres. She was diagnosed with CVI. She, on table or during that surgery, she had cardiac arrest. She was there for 1 month in the hospital. She's on ketogenic diet, and even today she gets 5 to 6, 7 spasms. The therapy that they did, I found out what they were doing was 15 minutes of sitting, some pronarm weight bearing, some showing some objects in terms of vision therapy, and some kind of brush exercises for oromotor. That was what was going on. We set up a dialogue. I met them on 15th of July. They were nice enough. The parents have been kind enough to allow me to present her today in front of you. And they have been kind enough to give me all the documents on Google Drive. I basically went through all that and set up a meeting. By that meeting, I really gauged what the caregiver's emotional, mental health, and understanding was. I asked for all kinds of videos in every functional, prone, supine, sitting, standing positions. I recceed every adjunct that they use, the splints, the braces, the adaptive equipment. I understood her medications. I understood her time if she gets those spasms. I asked for daily routines. I asked for other concerns. I also asked how they communicate with the child. I also asked how they basically, which toy she likes, what are her likes and dislikes, and any other concerns. Having said that, understanding from my knowledge, it helped me classify her basically. I really think, if I have to put it in a nutshell, she can sit with max assist when made to sit. She can roll totally dependent on caregivers for all her ADLs and transitions, and she can't communicate. And this is where I started planning. This is how she was. This is what she did, home therapy program. They made her sit and they made her stand. And this is what she was doing as brushing and as eye activities. So this was my observational videos that I got from them. And this is what she continued to do. Having said that, when you're really doing tele-rehab or telehealth, looking for the best available resources for therapy is important. So I looked at a table. I looked if I and she had a doll to learn. I looked at ball. I looked at anything that moves. The second thing that I did was, I want to show you 2 videos. I told her how you can make a roll. I looked at what pillows I can use, or do you have an office chair? And what I really did here is, this is like, what you have for gas cylinders, it rolls. So I really looked at that could be used by parents. And this is how I could kind of get these going. This is what I did. This is our first online. Everything that you're going to see, the yellows are the things that the parents have conveyed. So this is where we start talking, basically. This is how the parents start talking. And I think so.
Yeah, why are you crying? You're a good girl.
So I'm just going to shut the video down. But what they really told me was, by teaching them things on the video, it really helped them understand which exercises were correct, which were not to be done. And I think so, analyzing and putting positions, absolutely, I think so, getting that alignment and getting that posture was required. So our first session, what we did was, I went step by step, I went step by step. I made a towel roll. Then I looked at her. I don't know why this is happening, guys. Somebody's playing with my remote. Can I just... So what I wanted to tell you is, I went there, I really looked at how the pram can be fixed with pillows and her feeding chair. And I think that really helped her. That set the tone for our treatment. The second thing, what I always do is, I send pictures like this. And what they thought was, simple things matter. I showed them how to position, how to kind of look at what things are happening. And what they realized was, when they started positioning and taking care of the posture, mindless leg movements that she had were much less. She was much more calmer, very easy to handle. This is how we started. Always remember, guys, when you're doing therapy, we need to understand sensory systems. This was a small way of doing little compressions on the ball. I taught her how to do. When I looked at what equipment I have, I used the office chair to give her some vestibular stuff to get my postural tone going. So I told them to go clockwise 3, go anti-clockwise 3. Parents are very good listeners. They follow through. Then I told them go front, and that would really get some sensory systems going. They did a great job of giving me videos. They sent so many videos to me. Having said that, this is where we are now. This is how she's learned. This is a progress that I'm doing. and showing you how they made her stand. We used Pedilabs and made her stand. This is how I started tapping into her postural system, told her how she needs to. I needed to show them weight shift, so I used this chair to kind of give her a little anterior and a lateral weight shift. So this is how we progressed sessions, and this is what the parents would keep sending me videos. After that, we also went some progress where I could see her sitting very well with her mother, maintaining her head for some seconds, really looking at it. So I got a cause effect toy. This cause effect toy I really want to start using as communication, that if she really uses her hand, can we use it that she can call her parents and meet the parents, and for some activity they speak, they need to teach her this. So this is where we are going further. I need some communication stand. She does answer. Guys, remember, when you are doing ongoing sessions, the planning is important. It is challenging. I feel you need to look at parents, their concept, their mindset, what they want from us. And we as therapists really look at everything very holistically. Parents were very keen about vision. So she was trying, we really used her glasses. I put yellows, gelatin paper. I told her, just work on the focus, don't do anything. Once I got much more position, see how much better she is out here. This is the time, then I'm showing you in every angle that we are trying to show you that she can maintain her head. What we really did was, the parents are smart. When she looks, they gave her music. So they combined her favorite music with looking. And I think so that really helped her. This is where she's having much more and more communications is improving. She's trying to look at things. We're trying small things that are happening, and parents are looking. I've made a band like this that gives her a lot of, she smiled a lot. Mother started, I've shown her some activities for the face, and also I've shown her some activities how to get that mouth sensitivity less. She tried doing that. So the first thing that this is how she sets up a conversation with her. I told her to first give her a little butter, see if she can tongue out. So this is how she really suckles. And by doing this at the end of this 1 month, I really got two important things by tapping that. I want her to teach transition because she's a GMFCS5. First, we started with using her grandmother holding this hand and letting her sit. As time progressed, in 2-3 days, now she's trying to hold and trying. Now the next step will be, how do I teach her how to come up? Because that's going to be such a boon for someone who's a GMFCS5. And this is really helping the parents. They're practicing, so a lot of motor learning happens. Don't forget, guys, when you're treating kids with GMFCS4 and 5, nicely, I teach a lot of chest PT. I'm actually teaching them various positions that help them during illness. This is a small mucus extractor that can help them remove the secretions. So you really empower them and really take care of their respiratory health. That is most important. At the end, if I have to really look at her, keep going, keep her there for some time. See, this is how she's beginning to sit. We are counting seconds. We are going further of how these things are happening. She's trying to walk through the parents. She's learning to now. Yeah, that is how we go, and this is how she's now learned to suckle a little. Mother is giving some feed. She has a G tube, but she's really wanting to feed. The doctors have told her to kind of feed, and this is how she's learning to suckle. What really helped her was her posture. So I think so, if I had to really end up this case study, there are 2 points that come out. Do's and don'ts that we as therapists need to understand. We need to be double sure of what the parents have understood, ask for many videos, send lots of corrections back on a doll. Every time that you're teaching something, in your mind, be very specific. That is the biggest principle of neuroplasticity. You need to not only be very specific for a parent and a child and see how much motor that they are doing. For lots of severely involved children, do not forget chest therapy and look at the respiratory health. And one more caution to all therapists, please avoid dynamic equipments like ball swings, developmental positions like quadruped or rolling, because they have many compensations. The other thing that I do is I send pictures like this to tell them and understand what compensations are there and what she should not do. This is how I keep documentation at every week. Every week I ask for all the videos that they are doing. And the words that they give is, they thought that this teletherapy that you heard Madhvi present is flexibility, the same, that it is time consuming is less, fatigue to children is less, it empowers a parent, they are trying to do the best, it helps them coping strategies and actually gives them good mental and physiological health. So that was a great learner for me. The second case is totally a different case. This is a child that I've been doing early interventions from 45 days of life. He also had neuro surgeries. He has left hemiplegia, but his problems are huge, huge in terms of sensory systems. He's done pretty well. So when I have seen him today, when I present, he can walk and transition. He cannot speak, but he can very well communicate all his needs to his only mom. He's dependent on all ADL activities. He goes to play school, can't climb or descend stairs at school, and can't access playgrounds. So this is the mom's words of wisdom, and they're worth listening. See what she says. She says, when the pandemic started, it was great. It was like, having great time, like a normal child, no therapy, no structure, fun. She did what she could at home. Online therapy, she thought, were personal, but it still helped her. However, is a tool to empower her child. Her biggest problem started 2 or 3 months. She thought that he's just lying down in bed, enjoying. He turned out what he did, I'll show you in the next slide. He would just slither like a snake. So he would just lie down there, just scream, just smile, just lie like this, just keep doing these things as much as you can. He kept doing this, all these things, and he would sit like this. His kyphosis of sitting had increased. He would laugh. He was not paying attention. He was not understanding where he is. He would be in his own zone. He would completely zone out sometimes, and then he would randomly also walk from one place to another. So these were, and look at the way his legs held out. He does use an SMO, but this is where he was. So then we started really looking at what and how I can help her. What would be the best resource? I needed some kind of vestibular stuff. So the mother had this tool. This is where we began actually. The mother, I taught her how to give proprioception. This is where I said, use this tool, give her some movements, get her some stop and start. So it gives her a lot of compressions. You can't get this happening in what we could do in the clinic, but this is definitely better. She did this. Then I said, okay, after doing that, put him and just do a stop to start. Go clockwise, go clockwise, go anti-clockwise. I said, do it in sitting, do it with her, kind of do stop, do it in standing also. So we did all these things, and the mother really had to say that it really helps you. What she says, while doing this also focus, I gave them one more activity where they roll the child from side to side very gradually and come back holding that head. All these things helped him. So then I added proprioception, and then I added proprioception where I said, okay, let's work on the trunk. And then I said, let's work on the trunk, get my postural systems, get my upper extremities with that TheraBand working. I told her to put her up, tell him to maintain this. So it works on my core. It helps me to get my legs getting, my pelvis getting, because that is all that I require to get him to sit to a place and to work. Having said that, then I said, once you get this, can we have a TheraBand where he can really sit and really work that? So that helps my core. This is where it helped. And lastly, what I did was I made them work like this. So both had exercises, both had fun, had lots and lots of progression I did. After that, I said, okay, let's do some oromotor and some vision work. Mother, how need to patch him. This is how we are really working on peripheral vision. She knows what to do because she has been seeing this therapy. So that was very easy for her to do. I told her these are cause effect stuff that I really need to work for. Very, very important to let him learn. He actually is he really wants to see, the more he takes it to the mouth. So I said, okay, if he's taking to the mouth and if he's smelling it, use a Z vibe, because so the moment she started using a Z vibe, could concentrate, his mouth was taken care, he could concentrate on his extremities, that he could really work a lot to get some strength, use different textures of stuff. This is where he's sitting for some time in his school, and this is the school that is online sessions that are going on. He's paying attention, which he could never pay. And then what really happened is I told them to do a lot of work like this, and luckily they did. I told her, climb him up, climb him down, and they have a little terrace up. So I said, okay, let's work on vision, where I gave him lots of these commands, where I said, okay, in a line, put these shapes. He knows these shapes. I said, pick this up, bring it and put it in a bucket. Once he got the hang of it, what we really did was scatter them around. He had a cousin. He would go talk to her. She would say something. So there was social communication. He was visually scanning, sequencing, gave him a direction, helped his motor planning. So this is where we are really going. I do not have a video, but the mother has, this is how he actually sits now, but he still needs that video. He can sit for half an hour, 1 hour. This is his online school sessions that are going on. So that's helped. The mother just told me recently this is learning to climb steps independently. So that is what we've achieved in 1 month. As the primary caregiver, she says, what she says, I do not think anyone can replace the one-on-one touch therapy of my therapist. But in this given time, this virtual therapy has helped her connect with us, empowered her, and her child is doing well. So that's the message she wanted me to convey. If I have to end my cases, I feel as therapist, when we've had the time to meet them, empower them, give them all the benefits, teach them home program, ask for videos, see how committed they are, work for micro mini goals, also help them during these uncertain times. Here also pay attention to motor learning and neuroplasticity principles. How can you aid them? How can you empower them? And in these uncertain times ahead, guys, as a therapist, I also got convinced that we have to look at many other options. May never in the near future call them more frequently as we did. And I don't think so in the coming year, they're going to come 3 times, 4 times. And I think so online options may be the way forward. When I end my presentations, I ask Sanket to start his presentation. Sanket, I will stop my presentation and you can definitely start using your laptop to present. Thank you so much, guys. Sanket, can you share your screen?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Full screen
Okay.
karo, full screen.
Yes. So thank you, ma'am, for setting the tone for really, practically applying telehealth. One of the case studies that I am going to present is a small experience of mine doing this teleconsult and telerehabilitation. So the girl's name is Madhura Malangkot. She is a 4-year-old. She has cerebral palsy, spastic quadriplegia. Pre-lockdown, the therapy that they used to do is mainly home visits, and they used to follow it up with once a month clinic therapy. There were no in-person sessions done with me. The first session that was done by me was on WhatsApp video call because the parents were not well versed with any other platform. But the subsequent sessions, which I was happy, was on Zoom. So if we go by the ICF format, the health condition is cerebral palsy, GMFCS 5, MAX 5, CFCS 5, and EDAX 4. Body structure and function, at the level of body structure and function, there is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, dystonia in all 4 limbs, and she has dysphagia. Activity, she sits for 2-3 minutes in a modified chair and reaches out for a toy with assistance of the caregiver. She also drinks water from spoon with the assistance of a caregiver, and she's not able to stand and walk and unable to grasp toy in hand, unable to chew solid foods. So she's mainly using chewing on semi-solids and liquid. So at the level of participation, she recognizes the family members and smiles. She can't communicate her needs to the family. That is a participation restriction. Personal contextual factors, she enjoys movement and she loves listening to songs. Environmental contextual factors, it's a joint family, good family support, good accessibility for using mobility aids. In her case, it would have to be a wheelchair. So these are the few videos that the parents sent me when before we started doing the teleconsults. So this is her sitting video. here the mother is trying to get her to do some hand activity. So the table was a good idea by the mother, but the sitting alignment definitely needs some work, as can be seen in the video. This is how they do standing. They use the corner of the house. And I was surprised to see they also tried to do walking for her. So this was two people were helping her out, and she was completely supported, almost completely supported. So now let's take a glimpse into the few sessions that I did with Madhura. So these are the two videos I took before we started the session. These are the parent goals.
Sanket can't hear you.
You can hear me now, ma'am?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah, I had stopped talking. Okay. Now these are the feeding goals that I asked about. Oh, sorry.
Again, can't hear. Hello?
Is the video audible?
Video is audible.
No, it is not audible, but you are not audible.
Not audible, not audible. You are not audible.
Oh.
Ankit, your video sound is not audible. You're audible.
Oh, okay. So, yes.
On the computer sound, there is an option called switch on the computer sound.
Is the video audible? Oh.
Ankit, your video sound is not audible. You're audible.
Oh, okay. Is this audible now?
Yes. Audible.
Okay, just I'll play it again. I'll just play the previous video. So these are the parent goals.
Yes. Audible. Again, not audible.
You can talk and explain what is going on.
Oh. Yes, so here I'm asking the mother about her goals. So she's saying that Madhura should have neck control. She should have independence basically with respects to holding her body during sitting. And in terms of feeding goals, she wants that Madhura can chew solid foods also and drink water more efficiently without getting choked. She used the word thaska, so Madhura should not get choked on the food. So that is our concern. Okay, so moving to the next slide. On the left, I have just taken a screenshot of what we aimed to do with the sessions. In this video, we wanted to improve her sitting alignment basically. to get her to do 90-90 sitting alignment. So the hip, knee, ankles remain at 90-90. At the neck, we have tied a towel so that the neck does not, so the neck has some limits when Madhura tries to fling her neck into extension, flexion, or side flexion. So I'll just play the video. So there's no sound for these videos. So I'm just telling the Madhura's sister, to hold her elbows down so that she gets some input. And because she has put weight on the elbows, the subsequent weight on the pillows will ensure that the heels also touch down, you know. And the mother is trying to give input. One hand is on the left shoulder. Her thumb is trying to prevent excessive extension. And the other hand is trying to give input into the back to get better alignment. So this is something we tried with the sitting. So on the left, you can see the topmost photograph. We tried to use multiple chaddars, you know, keeping them on both sides so that Madhura does not lurch too much on one side or the other. The neck towel was still in place. This is a sitting chair and a standing frame that they have made. So the back side is actually the standing frame, and there is a small stool which gets attached to that frame to ensure her sitting. Although she did not have a lot of spasticity or tightness in the adductors, I thought it would be a good idea to have a pillow in between her legs to have a little wider base of support. So on the left, she is sitting by herself. We were really aiming at, doing such modifications that the mother can put it in place, and then she can leave Madhura, and Madhura is, still maintaining the alignment. What was previously done was mother used to always try to hold Madhura in place, and that used to go on for 5 minutes, and then Madhura was back to the floor. There was one thing that I was tempted to do during the session was to start therapy on the floor. So I think GMF says, "Fine, it's a bad idea to do therapy on the floor. It's better to have a 90-90 alignment." So on the left lower picture, that is my assistant therapist. I have yet to name her, but she's there for all my online consults. So I showed the parents how they can tuck in the towel roll or the pillow roll under the armpit, so to help Madhura, to sit more straighter. So here now Madhura's mummy is giving input at the level of the thigh. She was tempted to stretch the adductors, which are actually not that tight. So I told her to press the thighs down to give input into the base of support. And we were counting up to 30. And the aim was that Madhura should maintain this position and sustain this posture. On the left, you see Madhura's mother trying to spoon feed her water. So in that also we tried to correct her alignment. I gave the suggestion that Madhura's mother, takes her arm around Madhura's neck and into the front, so that it cradles her neck and prevents excessive extension backwards, which Madhura usually does. And with that arm, she also is trying to give input downwards into the base of support so that Madhura stays in place. So one of the things I noticed is that Madhura, since because of the dystonia, she has a lot of mouth opening. So on the right, I have just told Madhura's mother to use 4 fingers, 2 fingers below the chin and 2 fingers on the lips. So these ensure jaw closure, and these 2 fingers ensure lip closure. And all these fingers put input into the neck to have some chin tuck going, because Madhura has a tendency to keep her neck into extension. So I think this was a great learning experience for me too, and I think we should transfer skills, more skills to the parent, and not transmit the virus. So I request Asha ma'am to please conclude the session.
Thank you, Sanket, for that case study and the insight that you shared. Great. I think so. I have just 1 or 2 slides. We need to really plan in keeping the big picture. Don't miss these our eyes. That's how we need to keep them. Can you move it for me, Sanket? Can we go to the next slide? So if I have to make the concluding remarks, in the Western world with changing face of in-person healthcare, telehealth is rapidly evolving across the country. Just a few years ago, the majority of pediatric health efforts were pilot programs with limited reach. Now, many healthcare systems, hospitals, outpatient clinics have telehealth services embedded in their daily practices. Pediatric telehealth programs across the world have historically grown individually rather than in a cohesive fashion, which makes it difficult to address these concerns in an evidence-based manner. Lastly, when I, next slide, please, Sanket. So when I really come and finish my this, we in our country are taking baby steps as professionals. Current state of telehealth practices provides a base for ongoing development of pediatric health in the future. We need to be really looking at the standard operating procedures, the site of care. What is very clear to all of us as subspecialties, as community and tertiary care practitioners like us, is that telehealth has become and will continue to be an integral part of ongoing clinical care for pediatric patients and their families. Technology has its advantages and disadvantages. You need to keep the security in mind. There is a strong need for guidelines for telehealth practices in pediatric for Indian scenario. Empowering both of parents and professionals equally is the way forward. And I guess we as therapists will have to reinvent our thinking. We'll have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that is how I conclude. Can I have the last slide, Sanket? Thank you so much. And can I have the slide, please, Sanket?
Yes.
When I say thank you to all of you, I thank my team. I thank all the parents who have helped us and allowed and given us the permission to present and help us also learn, and all our colleagues. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we are ready to take some questions as a group.
Hello, madam. Hello. Hello, excuse me.
Yes,
you can start.
Hello, madam. Thank you very much. As a moderator, I want to say something at this time. I have not said in the beginning because so many speakers are there, and there's really golden speech, and we have learned many things. Just I'm telling that Trapti madam has discussed about the guidelines on platform, what we have to discuss, what are the things are needed. It's very good computer, laptop and other things. So what are the benefits also and barriers and lacunae that are also, and that's it. Has used technology, what are the technology you can use in simple and complex and telehealth. And that also, what are the things and platform we have you commonly can use, and what are the resources also, and also discuss advantage and disadvantages also. And also Madhuri madam has is a very good thing has discussed. That is a research that is very much needed in this time, because we have to go in forward. And research for that, research is very much needed, and for continuing our therapy, teletherapy, what other things are needed, for that research is very much needed, and that is very nicely has discussed what are the things are needed, what are the evidence are there, what are the limitations, what are the directions for the future. And lastly, Asha madam has discussed about the case studies. So nicely we have learned practically we have to do. Theoretically, actually, we have great knowledge, everybody here. But how we have to deal and what is the way best and how we can connect with our patients really in this period is a really great discussion with practical video feature and what are the postures we have to maintain as well. ADL also in sensory integration also everything and what are the things has to do or not has to do that also and very good information to parents also. You know the parents are very anxious in this period because I am getting so many grievances and complaint in my WhatsApp and mail also. They are telling we can't attend your clinic institution with what way my child is deteriorating and main problem is their hyperactive child. They can't stay inside the room. They cannot use the mask and they cannot go in the out. So say pathetic condition for normal child. You cannot imagine for this type of child. They can continue also. They can't continue as a treatment because they become hyperactive and they can for a long time they are locked inside the room. So that is a great problem. And ma'am, next speaker Sanket also same thing has discussed how that Luca means community things can be or room means what are the room corner or what are the appliances can be used easily by the parents by maintaining the postures and all things, and that is very important as a posture maintain and also ADL and also the exercises. Anyhow, I want to say that every speaker has done very good, and I just tell you one thing is that is the I have seen from my experiences very problem in the rural area. They have no the smartphone. They cannot contact many. They have told that I can't continue, I can't connect with madam with a video call or anything. So these are great problem. And also I think that is touch is not, touch is the best therapy actually. But I have convinced the parents that you are the best doctors, you are the best therapists, your touch is very important than me. So that's why you continue therapy, any problem you contact me. In this way we are just serving, but we are not satisfied also. And they are also partially satisfied, not fully. Anyhow, I have a plan and also I want to share your experience that in future my aim is also is there that that mobile hand or mobile therapy should be started. That's so that home to home service we can give. So that they will be invited. I also will discuss our director sir who has given this chance, and also I am grateful to our president sir also. Day before yesterday just contact with him and I have convinced to say something. So I'm just thinking about that. That this not can be done, that mobile therapy or ban, so that we can reach to them. That's like severe approach. Now we are, they cannot come to me because due to lack of vehicles and parents also now. There's so many problems. That's why I think that that should be best. That's mobile therapy. We can start home to home service at least once in a month. So that will be benefit. For pediatric patients is very much needed that service. Okay, I finish my speech. Because so many questions are there in chat box. So one by one that question I think can we start and madam.
Hello.
Madam.
Yes.
Question, so many questions are there. So for talk maybe started that. By team, you can answer. Actually, that is so many questions. First question is there that whether it is good or idea to give education game, computer games in this pandemic situation.
Guys, anybody wants to answer that, please? I think so. If I have to answer, giving educational games to, and we have to decide. We have to decide who you want to give to, who the client is, how smart the mother is, what kind of availability they have. So I think so all these things, it can't be given to everybody. You really need to have, and today being in pandemic, how much screen time are people using it? So I feel we really need to go case wise, individualized wise. Why are we giving it? Is it going to help the visual system? Is it going to help his language? Why are we giving that? Or is it kind of, you mean computer games? Is it virtual reality? What that needs to be really looked at. That's my view on taking.
Hello, Madhuriti madam, please.
Yes. Yes, what is the did you hear me? Hello?
What is the next question? Please go ahead.
Yes, next question is how deal with the lack of hands-on during the session in telehealth?
Telehealth mean, yeah, I got it. It is not about dealing with hands-on. I think so. It is explaining a parent and empowering a parent that your hands are the most important hands, and what I speak and what I show on the doll you have to deal with it, because there is no way at this given point of time. Ideally, I would love to I or anybody as a therapist fraternity would love to put their hands on, but it's just not possible at this point. So we empower their hands in the given situation at this point.
Right. Next question, what if parents not aware of technology? Example, those belong to village or they don't have IT facility. Already have talked in that.
Guys, you also speak. Yeah. Guys, today, please speak.
Hello.
Hello.
In terms, I know with my parent, the experience that I shared, they were not aware of anything apart from WhatsApp. So it is necessary, apart from giving these skills of hands-on, also to give these technology skills to the parent. So over a period of time, they realize that WhatsApp video call requires that, the phone you have to place in a certain way, and it's very fidgety. So Zoom works better. So the second session that we did and the subsequent sessions were all on Zoom, and the parents towards the end of the second and the third sessions, they were very, very well versed with Zoom, using Zoom. So I think that is also part of empowering the parent.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what areas were covered in your survey, Dr. Shashikala?
Yeah, so we had sent the survey questions for all categories. I have the statistics here, which I would like to read out. And this statistics is particularly for the maximum number of responses that we've received from therapists who were not doing any tele-rehab. So we had about 46% from Maharashtra, 23% from Gujarat, 8% from UP, 6% from Tamil Nadu, and about 3% from Bengal. So we had covered almost all the areas, but the representation was definitely maximum from Maharashtra and Gujarat.
Okay, ma'am, thank you very much. Then next, some message is there from Jasmeet Arora to everyone. One of the major issues of sharing video recording, often parents share videos with other parents, which can be concerned as the specific advice is given for the child. It's a very good suggestion. Sharing of experience. I think it is very good. Sharing of experience. Therefore, that some meeting we can call at the end of month or once in a month with the parents. That is for the parents meeting. And I think that is very good suggestion.
What is the further question?
Okay, next next question. There's all our suggestion. The next question from Pradeep to everyone: how muscle tone can be assessed by the parents?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I talk?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, actually, we can't ask the parents to check the muscle tone, but we can ask them to put them into functional positions, and we can guess, we can check out on the videos, and we can see, we can just judge. It is just because it will be a professional judgment to see the positions and the functional positions, the tone of the child. We can actually not have an hands-on assessment of the tone here, since it's a teletherapy.
Can I
Asha,
add
yeah.
to it?
Yes, Lakshit.
I mean, muscle tone assessing the neuromotor system is very difficult for parents to understand and follow it that way. But we can just check basic range of motions. We can show that on the doll, that what are the basic range of motion, how do we check it, and they can check it and send those videos to us. But it's very difficult to assess tone. But what we need is, we want them to be into the functional positions, and we want them to function better in whatever capacity that they have in those positions. So maybe a little bit of musculoskeletal assessment may be possible.
Can I answer? Guys, can I just say something before we go down to tone? I think so. Me and you as therapists do not treat tone. Tone is treated if you give Botox or you give medications. What we look is what is wrong with the posture and how best. So we have to understand tone, but I don't think so. We as therapists treat tone. That is just what I wanted to go ahead. Yes, Sashikala, madam, please speak, ma'am. Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
You almost said half of what I wanted to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ultimately, what matters is the function limitations, which may not be due to tone at all. Because when we improve tone, we don't see very often improvement in function. What we need to teach parents probably is compensatory strategies, and then as Sanket showed, using what is available at home, and then use your creativity to get the child to do something. Get the child, and I congratulate Sanket for having started it with the ICF framework. So we need to teach parents very, very seriously about functionality. How they function is what is far more important. How they participate is far more important than the activities, how perfectly they do.
Thank you, madam. I mean, it's very good suggestion and also good advice. Always we have to see the capability of the patient, functional capacity of the child, not only the tones, because tone cannot be normal throughout the exercise also, near to normal maybe, but not normal. So don't think for the tone. I think that will be better for see the functional capacity, and that should be improved. Next question.
Just need to comment. One very small comment I want to make. There are many situations where we are not able to reach to the patient. Patient is not able to reach to you. There are assessments which cannot be done on a laptop or a phone. And in this situation, what happens is your device acts as an extension if there is a competent physician or a therapist on the other side. Just have a situation where there is a patient in Ichalkaranji, there is a general rehab specialist or a therapist or occupational therapist there, but they want the specialist opinion. And they reach out to Asha. So Asha is not able to go to Ichalkaranji, the patient is not able to come to our clinic. But with help of a local therapist, she can help assess the patient. Dr. Shashikala ma'am is at Bangalore, but if there is a patient in Assam who has an epilepsy or some problem, the pediatrician over there can reach out to Dr. Shashikala through telemedicine today to make more of this telehealth situation. At SRCC Children's Hospital, we have started, the multidisciplinary clinics now. All Anita is sitting at her home at my clinic. The patient is at home. The therapists are at their home. Some of them are at the center. So different specialists can come together, evaluating the same child. The other day, Sanket and me saw a child with crouch gait. All of us were at different places. So I feel, there is more role for telehealth rather than just giving consultation or just doing therapy. And I think IACP as a body should explore this sort of aspect, because we are represented by all consultants, all specialities, including parents. And this is something which is very important, because if the parent also gets to be part of the whole system, and I feel, so there are multiple dimensions which this team has brought about, and we can only explore it more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Telemedicine, telerehabilitation is the future. It's going to be here for a long, long time because COVID is not going to go away for another 2 years at least.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Dr. Taral. We are very appreciative of your kind words.
Thank you, madam, and thank you, sir, for your valuable opinion. Of course, we have seen also our experience also. Some patients need the consultation and they are attending our institution because you have already told the epileptic attack and other problems they are having. They need consultation and they are coming our clinic and we are checking also and we are demonstrating exercises also. That is very much needed consultation. Anyhow, the next question, the same, I think same answer. Have there been guidelines for telehealth assessment and thereafter therapy? So the same already answer is given by our respective sir and madam. And next question will go. Please give the names of Indian articles on telephysiotherapy as told by Madhavi ma'am. Madhavi ma'am, please.
Sure. I can just. How do I send the references? I can just share the citations. Dr. Taral, where can I send the citations in this chat box?
Yeah, madam.
The chat. Put it in the chat.
ACT website. We will send it by email to everyone who is
Sure.
also share it on the Facebook page.
Sure.
So all the three places will have it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, that Gurupreet Kaur, madam, if she will provide the email or by Facebook also can be provide. Okay, now we will go with the next question. That is that already the message is there that the pandemic has helped to empower the parents, which is a positive outcome. Then next question with the maximum the next question, the same question I think, that how muscle tone can be assessed by the parents. Already you have discussed.
There is a very important question which has come up on Facebook, and I'm putting out to everybody, all experts here, that there are a lot of programs to teach the therapist about telehealth, to consultant about teleconsultation. Are there any programs to teach parents how to receive teletherapy, how to make them experts in getting the therapy back? So this is a question I want people to answer.
Taral, I'll answer this. Okay, madam. Taral, when we started this survey and when we sat down and we thought about what we need to do, that is the time we really looked at these questions and we looked at how so we as a group of our parents, we have not done it on a long but as parents, and we kind of get 2 parents to speak, I sit down and speak to 10 parents. So we are making everybody very aware of how it is important, what is important, having groups of parents talking to each other. Yes, absolutely, we are doing that, and it's extremely important. Specifically what Madhvi presented, where parents have inhibitions. Yes, Shashikala madam, we would like to listen from you.
Yeah, we have started a platform called as AssistTech, sponsored by the Disability Department. We address a group of parents, 10 we take each time, and then we ask their questions and then answer them, multi-professionals. And then we now have been able to find out that parents are quite capable, quite competent in handling technology. You know, that's something which is very gratifying. It's not from Bangalore, but it's from quite an amount, part of Karnataka. So we are reaching out, we are upscaling this program and trying to reach to the whole of the state. So it is possible, you know, what you need is a technology support group. And there are a lot of startups who have done that. If any of you want it, we can join on 6th, we have it, but we'll be doing it in Kannada, you know. So those of you who know Kannada, we may translate it into Hindi. It's very, very possible. Technology is there to reach out to parents in remote parts of the country also. I think ISFP should opt for this mode rather than having subject-wise webinars. You know?
Thank you, madam, for your suggestion and your speech. And that already other questions already have discussed, that is again the muscle tone, how can be assessed, repeatedly he has asked. because regarding assessment, parents are very anxious.
Dr. Sandeep Samanta wants to talk. Please.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yes, sir.
He raised his hand.
Sandeep sir, speak, sir.
Hello, sir. Please.
Sandeep Samanta.
Sir, is he there?
No, for the past 1 year, Indian Academy of Cerebral Palsy on all platforms, I used to say that the Indian Academy of Cerebral Palsy main aim is reach the unreached. So definitely we will go to all unreached rural areas, especially with the help of Dr. Shakti Das, sir. We reached Sikkim, where the hilly area, there this telehealth is going to do wonders due to the mobility. I will share with you 30 years back, I met our late Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao. Then he was a Minister for Human Resources. He said, see, we have to change. In America, fellow specialist sits in California, a countryside patient who gets a heart attack, then they do the ECG and he test the patients. But in our India, phones are not working and phones does not have that kind of competent technology. Now there is a lot of change in technology. Even Zoom used to be there. We don't use to Zoom. We never used Zoom. And yesterday when Taral Nagda was explaining about Zoom, I really wondered that so many features are there. It is like a classroom. Teacher is nothing. It is a more than classroom teaching. We can teach the needy patients who are in the rural area. So many options are there. The telemedicine also government used to support in 20 years back. So slowly no one used to use the telemedicine because of some personal contacts. Now this pandemic really brought this weapon into focus. It is like a Pandavas kept these Ayudas in a Jemmi tree. Now we are taking out. Lot of technology now. Yesterday I read an article, Tata Communication is going to give us a wonderful technological platform. With that we can do wonders. We can reach anyone. Even a layman can use that platform. That's what Dr. Chandrasekharan Tata's consultancy head he in his interview said. See, the therapists, they're going to do many rural area therapy. Patients are unable to get the therapy. This telemedicine, what Asha, Sanket, Madhavi, Trupti, all of them demonstrated that should help all the therapists to practice in their day-to-day life practice. It will definitely, IACP will take up this issue and we will conduct the workshops to train the parents how to utilize the technology, what are the advances, how best we can utilize the WhatsApp or Zoom or Google Meet. Anyway, even if we will record the videos and we will share with the parents how this thing can be done. We are always there. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. It's a very good idea. Parents training, that can solve other problems, I think. Ma'am, hello.
Yes.
May I conclude my speech because no questions are there. So 5 points we have learned, important things we have learned from this seminar. That is, the first is in the light of COVID-19 crisis, occupational therapists and physiotherapy practitioners everywhere are thinking about the telehealth, and many of you are actively working in the long-term solutions. And that is another thing is that the telehealth therapy is going to change the way the practice. It will impact our profession in ways we have yet to imagine. It helps to raise service of our clients. And thirdly, we should have a comprehensive resource on telehealth OT at PT as we know it is today, along with some information to help us stay up to the date with the quickly changing landscape. And number 4, telehealth can be broken into main 4 criteria, that is a live video and store and forward and remote patient monitoring, mainly for the rural areas, and mobile health. And last is the research is very much needed, and mainly their home health, means how the child are in the home area, because not around the well in that maybe the slum area, maybe there only one room is there, they can't continue their therapy, they are in this situation. So that we have to keep in mind how they are maintaining their home health, medical health, mental health and wellness and preventive care. And next is school based occupational therapy and therapy, because they are also can attend their school, and that also we have to keep in mind, and that on that I think the research should be focused. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, so much for moderating this session on behalf of ISCP and giving your insights and valuable inputs. Thank you so much on behalf of my team.
Welcome, ma'am. Welcome, sir. All of you welcome. I am also very thankful to introduce with everybody.
We request Dr. Shakti Das, as usual, to give vote of thanks. And then
okay, already so many discussion. Thank you very much. We have discussed a new area. As Dr. Sasikala Madam always tells, knowledge transfer. Now we have technology transfer. We have transferred the knowledge as well as the technology to the therapists and our participants and all the pediatricians, those who have joined, as well as also the parents. That is most important. So ISCP is for the transfer of the knowledge. So we have transferred the knowledge. So we are very happy. I am thankful to our board of directors, our president sir, who has taken a lot of interest and a lot of pain to arrange this. Thank you. I thank my core of my heart and all the team members, all the faculties, Asa, Madhavi, Sanket, Lakhit. I thank everybody for taking this telemedicine, which is a new area. And again, I thank the moderator, Dr. Rupali Sen of NILD, for moderating this session, Dr. Minakhi, and all the participants. So hope what is our aim? Our aim, how the children with disability or cerebral palsy will be benefited. So ultimately, in this hour of need, if you give something to them, they will be happy. If they are happy, then we are happy. So with these few words, I convey again my thanks to all the team, and thank you very much.
We thank Dr. Jasmeet also for remotely helping.
Yes. Thank you.
We thank you, sir, for supporting all the time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam.
Before we close, can we talk about the CP Day virtual celebration of CP Day among us, executive body members, just for a few minutes?
Yeah, but there are a lot of people in the chat, ma'am.